Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Sheila, can you take attendance, please?
Fairholm.
Here.
Olson.
Here.
D. Peterson.
Here.
J. Peterson. Swaysinger.
Here.
Perfect. Before you are the meeting minutes for the August 8th meeting. Are there any questions?
Motion to approve.
Tim?
Second.
And Rachel. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Dr. Froke, do we have any agenda changes?
We have a change in new business, section C. We have Bryce Almond, work agreement, and I'll be replacing that recommendation with a recommendation for Mark Upward as a seasonal grounds person. And also, we will scratch John Cole, resource officer, for this meeting, since he has conflicts as far as being able to make this meeting, but we'll have him back again to introduce him to you. And then I guess that's what I have for changes then, Shannon.
Perfect. With that, we'll accept the changes of the agenda.
Motion to accept.
Thank you, Doug.
Second.
And Rachel. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. We have, according to our new indication of any conflict of interest, Dr. Froke, did you want to bring that up?
Yes, as you know, it is okay to have conflicts of interest. It's just that they need to be identified now with the new law, and we'll be doing some work on a policy soon. But as we identify potential conflicts, then we need to bring those forward. One potential conflict would be Dawn Worth working for the Department of Education during her off time, where she received a stipend, and so that would be identified as a potential conflict.
Thank you very much. Section 5 is visitors to be heard. We have Pam. I'm sorry.
Before you leave that subject, so it doesn't get lost over time, you should have a motion and a second to determine whether or not that the subject matter of that contract and the material terms of it are fair, reasonable, and not contrary to public interest. If you need information from Dawn, I think she's here.
We need to do that tonight.
You should do it every night as these come up.
Do we need to invite the individuals that the conflict pertains to?
If you want more information than what you have before you, yes, you can ask her what that entails.
So we have an action item tonight for
Here.
that?
You would have a motion and a second to make a determination whether that is fair, reasonable, and not contrary to public interest.
Okay.
We did that in past meetings.
Okay. I guess then I'd question Dr. Froke exactly what that agreement is to start us.
It would be work on a grant to improve reading instruction in our school, and since Dawn was receiving a stipend of $200 per day for 2 days, she elected to take those days off, so she wasn't under contract with the school district during the time she did that. So I don't think it's in any contrary to any public interest, because she did take that time off and actually was to benefit our students. So.
Is that contract now complete? Is that contract now complete? I mean, is it fulfilled, or is it an ongoing?
It's a grant
Mhm.
that the district has with the Department of Education, special education programs. So it is this year and through next year.
Okay, so I guess I'm confused. So this is a grant we have. Dawn is acting on behalf of the grantor as opposed to the,
Yep.
yeah, can you explain that? I'm sorry.
It's a grant, it's a pilot program for special ed programs to improve reading instruction. And so I'm training the teachers in the DIBELS assessment. That's what we did for those 2 days. And that's something that we agreed to in the grant. That as a pilot district, we agreed to do training for teachers K through 3 with DIBELS each year. And so the new teachers that came, I trained them in DIBELS, and part of the grant was to pay a trainer to do that. So I actually worked more days in July, and then in August, when the teachers were more available or all on staff, then we did the training. So we'll have that again next year. We'll still be able to use the grant money to do that, to pay the teachers and a trainer. Is that clear?
That's good. Thank you.
It gets kind of muddy, so.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, I appreciate your comments.
What's the terminology again, Jim? It's a,
Fair, reasonable, and not contrary to public policy.
I would make that motion that we would allow that or approve that.
Tim
Second.
and Rachel. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. Thank you for the clarification, Jim. Visitors to be heard. We have Pam Hansen visiting us with the Vermillion Area Dance Organization.
Good evening. I am Pam Hansen. I am one of the co-vice presidents of the Vermillion Area Dance Organization. I have also been the recital chairperson for the last 4 years. Vado is a nonprofit dance studio in Vermillion whose mission is to provide quality dance at an affordable price. Vado has been a dance studio in Vermillion for the past 6 years. This is our 7th year of existence, and I believe this is the longest time that there has been a studio in Vermillion. Vado is governed by a volunteer parent and community board. There are currently 180 students enrolled, with more expected to enroll this first week of classes, September 12th through the 15th, which is what we call walk-ins. The ages range from 1.5 to adults, and we also have students with disabilities. We offer a large variety of classes: ballet, tap, lyrical, hip-hop, modern, creative movement, dance team, jazz, daytime variety, and total bar. There have been many of the Vermillion High School Dance Inferno new and returning members who were previously enrolled in classes at Vado and performed with the Vado Performance Dance Team during their middle school years. Vado dance team classes have performed during the Vermillion High School Dance Inferno Christmas and spring performances. And then in turn, the Vermillion recital, the Dance Inferno students come and help with us. So we feel like it's a good partnership going on. 90% of the students enrolled are members of the Vermillion community enrolled in the Vermillion School District. So my purpose tonight is to request use of the Vermillion High School Theater for Vado's 2017 dance recital. This recital is scheduled for Sunday, May 21st at 2 p.m., sorry. If possible, we would like to use the theater in the evenings on Monday, May 15th through Friday, May 19th for what we call Tech Week. Tech Week is a time when the students come in to practice on the stage and have stage time to get the feel of what the theater is like compared to the smaller classrooms. We are more than willing to work around any scheduled events. In the last couple of years, we have worked around baccalaureate, and I believe there was another conflict, but we were able to reschedule so that we could work around it. We would like to use the theater, green room, band room, and commons on Saturday, May 20th for a full dress rehearsal, which is a run-through of the show with no interruptions, and on Sunday, May 21st for the recital. In the past 2 years, we have also worked with Jason Huska to schedule what we call our picture day, and we use the commons area for that. It's worked really well. Vado has done all the cleanup after every use of the Vermillion High School Theater, commons, green room, and band room. In the past year, there has been no charge assessed to Vado for use of the building as long as we do all the cleanup. And so that's what I'm here to ask for, is if that would be possible again to do that this year.
Where's the studio at?
The studio is across the street from the hospital. Its location is 20A Plum Street.
Okay.
Sanford provides the home to us for no charge. They pay for all of our utilities and everything. We will have to find a new home in the next year to 2 years. We are in the process of trying to figure out where we are going to go because that building will be demolished. So
Monday, the 15th through the 19th.
Monday, May 15th through Friday, May 19th during the evening hours, like after 5, and then Saturday, May 20th, and Sunday, May 21st. Not all day, it would be just during probably a 4 to 5 hour increment on that Saturday and Sunday. And we are requesting it after, it's a week later this year because one of our dance instructors, Stephanie Ritzler Christofferson's son, is graduating on the weekend that we usually have it. So we're asking for a week later. And my daughter actually is graduating from Marty at the same time too. So, so we are scheduling the recital a week later than what we normally do.
Last day of school currently scheduled for the 18th, barring snow days.
Yep.
So baccalaureate's the week before you need it.
Mm-hmm. It should be as long as things stay. But like I said, we've been out of the theater anytime they've told us there's anything going on. We just make sure that it does not cause any conflicts or anything. So,
Thank you.
well, we thank you for letting us use the facility. It's a beautiful facility to be used for the kids. So,
Make a motion to approve no charge for Vado.
Okay. Doug
Second.
and Tim. Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
thank you very much. We really appreciate it. It's a beautiful facility and a great way to highlight our kids. So, we appreciate you guys. And we'll connect with the janitors to make sure that we get everything done that they want done. So,
Thank you.
all
We
right.
appreciate
Thank
it.
you. Next, we have Amy Askew, who is school nurse.
Yes, since Amy is new to us this year, I'd like to see who she is. I'm sure some of you know her already, but just thought I'd bring Amy in and introduce her to you. And, one of the things, Amy has a great deal of background in the medical profession, which gives me extra reassurance as she works with her children. So, yeah, we welcome you, Amy. So
Thank you.
Perhaps you could tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, like you said, I've been a nurse for 16 years. 13 of those years have been in this community at Sanford. And I've spent time in surgery, doing just med-surg, clinic. I've done home health. I've done community outreach. So I've got a broad depth of experience across the medical field. This is my first time in the school system, so that's all new for me. But so far, I'm really enjoying it. I love being with the kids, and the staff is excellent. So I don't know if you want to know anything more about my background or anything. I just wanted to introduce myself so you could put a face to the name. And is there anything or any questions? No?
Just let us know if you need things or as things come up.
I will. Yes, I will. Thank you.
At this time, we invite members of the public to address the school board on any topic not currently on the agenda for this evening. We ask that if you'd like to speak to us, that you use the microphone and the podium, state your name and address for the record, and remarks will be limited to 5 minutes, and no decision will be made at this time. Seeing there are no public remarks, we will move on to unfinished business. Item A, second reading and approval of activity director and assistant activity director job descriptions.
Sure, and you'll see those in your packet. There have been a number of changes, and I don't know that I right now can pinpoint all the specific changes, but perhaps I could focus on some of the main things we wanted to make sure that we zeroed in on, and that included communication, providing health and safety for the students, and the activities in general, and then guidance to maintenance personnel. There was a question at last meeting regarding South Dakota administrative certification, and Jim reminded me after the meeting that in order for someone to evaluate, they need an administrative certification. And that would be true with your assistant as well, since he'll be evaluating at the middle school level. So I just wanted to note that. Also, you'll note on the chain of command, the organizational chart, we did not have the assistant activities director included there previously, and that was brought to our attention, and it's way over to the left side where he falls under the activities director, so we included that as well there.
Dr. Froke, I had a question about that org chart. I know Jason fills dual roles, if you would, as Dean of Students and Activities Director, and see Mr. Cameron here. Just throw the question out there, do we
Excuse me.
conflict Jason at all by that dual reporting, or, you know, in one case he reports to Mr. Cameron and for other duties to you? Is that been a problem? Or?
Well, that's a very good question, and always in an organizational chart, you strive to have each person in the organization responsible for only one person, but in this case, you're correct that he answers to two different people depending on his role. So given the two different roles, I see them as somewhat separate. He deals with attendance and student management, discipline, if you will, at the high school level, or that would fall under Mr. Cameron, and then the management of the activities, where it would fall under my general supervision. So I haven't ever really run into any conflicts, say, between Kurt and me in managing Mr. Huska in those two roles during our time. And I guess if we do, I think it's important that we communicate that. But I think it's a very valid question, and because you always want a person responsible to one, but in this case, you're accurate. He is accountable to two different people here.
I guess I'd just ask that the communication will be key between the three of you, so make sure Mr. Huska is aware of that, and if he's feeling that way, to pull the two of you together and resolve whatever it could be for future.
Yeah, that's a good point, yeah. I asked Mr. Huska and Mr. Drake if they were comfortable with the job descriptions as we've worked out, and they are. I'm sure as the year progresses, we'll notice that maybe we missed something or want to make some adjustments, and if that's the case, then we'll come back to you again and ask for those changes.
There's a repetition of something in the activities director description. On the second page, item 11 and 15 are the same. Maybe you should go for 15 because it doesn't necessarily restrict it to at the middle school.
So you're saying leave 15?
Leave 15 in there and get rid of 11 and renumber from. And then another question I had was in 10C, it says rules and regulations to be eligible to participate in the athletic program. Should that be in activities programs?
Yes.
Are there any other changes that anybody sees?
I can't find it. Motion to approve second reading?
Tim? And Doug. Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. We have before us the contract, or an addendum to the contract for the 2016-17 school year.
Yes, and you'll see that it is for a 3% increase, and that's the maximum allowed under our contract for the bus company to receive, and it's governed by the amount of state aid that we receive each year. So if we were to receive any more than 3%, that's still all that the bus company can have. Or if we receive an amount less than 3%, that's what they can have, is that amount that's less. So okay, and then so that's a 3% addendum change. Just want to mention in regards to the bus company, you probably are very aware that there was a bus accident out here on the east edge of town, and that accident put one of our activity buses out of commission. And so they rolled one of the route buses out of the route scenario and will be used as an activity bus until a new activity bus arrives. And that will take upwards to 3-4 months potentially. I don't know. I guess that's where that's at. it wasn't a brand-new activity bus. I think this bus was maybe 2 or 3 years old, but still very nice bus.
Did this one have under the storage underneath?
No, it did not, no.
Will the new one
The new one.
have underneath storage?
No, I don't know about that, yes.
Does dropping to 4 route buses have any impact on times or difficulty with students getting to and from school?
Shouldn't, Doug, they'll roll another bus in from their total fleet.
Oh, okay, so it doesn't, okay.
Yeah, I should have mentioned that, but they'll use an older,
So the total service delivered remains the same.
right,
Got it.
yes.
If we have a choice, I think we'd like one with the storage underneath.
Okay, I'll mention that.
And video system.
And videos.
Video system. They need to watch
I wanted
movies.
wireless is what my request would be. To help everybody's data plans.
Wi-Fi.
Have any kids riding?
It's not for my
I
concern.
should mention early on, there were a couple, visiting with a couple board members, a couple of you, there was indication that Dakota Valley was taking on a contract with our bus company as well, which I think that benefits us, but they got new activity buses, and they're quite an upscale activity bus, and I put in a word that we would like one of those as well, but that didn't come about because of the cost with our contract. Now, an activity bus that Dakota Valley is going to receive will cost double what our activity buses cost. And so if you see a couple fancy buses coming in from Dakota Valley, it's, you know, they're paying a good amount in their lease agreement for those. But if you are inspired upon seeing those, we could put that request in, but it will cost.
That's like the outside, how they have all their logo and their branding on their buses.
Yes, and
Right,
then,
the skins.
yeah, and then they're a flat nose bus, and they'll have special seating and air conditioning and all of that. So, no.
No. These are the individual, each seat has their own individual air conditioning, and they're individual seats, not bench. They're fancy. As much as I'd want one, it'd be pretty hard to justify unless we got a nice donor who wanted to provide that for the district. And if there's anybody out there, please come forward. So.
But you know, one thing about it, we do have very nice buses all the way around, and our activity buses are top notch. You know, just not that expensive as what our neighbors will have.
I make a motion to approve the addendum for the 2016-2017 bus contract rate.
Thank you, Rachel.
Second.
And Tim. Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. New business. We have to set the 2017 school board election date. Sheila.
Correct. On page 18, and what I did was I just gave you the South Dakota codified law and some justification for why we like, when we're holding it solely, all by ourselves, to have it in April versus June. So,
I make a motion to approve the school board election on April 11th, 2017.
Thank you, Rachel.
Second.
And Tim. Any further discussion on the motion?
What date would petitions be due for that then?
What was it like?
Oh, I'm just curious, so that it's in the record.
How many days before, isn't it like?
I can get that to you.
Okay.
I don't, I'd have to go back.
Maybe sometime in March or February?
Probably end of February.
Okay.
We'll
So
go to
we-
training in December, and
Okay.
then we'll go to the election workshop, and that's when we get all that publication notice information, so.
Thank you.
lost my train of thought there. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Next, we have approval for early graduation request.
Yes, you'll see papers included here where a student is asking for early graduation, and individual has met the requirements at the administrative level. And you'll see by the signatures. And then she'll complete all of her requirements by semester time, so is making this request to graduate early and then participate in graduation ceremonies in the spring.
Have to compliment the student. It was one of the most well-written requests that we've received.
Make a motion to approve?
Thank you, Rachel. And Doug. Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. We have before us approval of classified staff.
Yes, and coming up on the screen, of classified staff recommendations. Mark Upward, Patrick Butler, and Brian Kimball. Mark, seasonal grounds, and Patrick and Brian, custodians, and we have to hire a couple custodians yet. Very difficult to find people to put in manual labor these days. So those are our classified recommendations.
Motion to approve?
Thank you, Tim
Second.
and Rachel. Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Approval of activities personnel.
Also on the screen, you have Kelsey Biltoff for ninth grade volleyball, Amelia Howard, assistant oral and terp, and George Seitz, assistant debate. And if I'm not mistaken, I think all of these are college students at the university.
Motion to approve?
Rachel
Second?
and Tim. Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Approval of BSA personnel.
You'll also see on the screen 4 additional. Now, these aren't full-time personnel. As I've mentioned before, BSA brings on additional personnel who work part-time shifts, and we've had quite an increase in our BSA participation for the fall, so the director felt additional personnel were needed. And so you'll see these 4 individuals, Brett Story, J.J. Cunningham, Marley Ball, and Max Hooker.
Approve.
Doug
Second.
and Rachel. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We have approval of adult volunteers for activities.
On the screen, you'll see 3 individuals, Alan Weinecke, Shad Wilson. Both of these are football, and Sydney Doan for volleyball. And these are volunteer positions, and see that they qualify by their responses.
Which grades are they working with?
High school level.
Motion to approve and thank them for their volunteering.
Tim
Second.
and Doug. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Approval of open enrollment applications.
You have 10 applications in your packet. I'm going to ask you to remove 2 of them. And these are 17-11-OE and 17-12-OE. Children have been placed in foster care in another school district. So that leaves 8. I think you'll see one of the 8 is currently in preschool, and you don't need to open enroll for preschool, but we received the application, so we thought, well, we could just as well take care of it now for the following year, if that's all right with you. We'll keep it on record. But
So
of
once a
course-
student is open enrolled, we don't have to renew that? They
No,
just-
you're fine.
Motion to approve open enrollment requests.
Thank you, Doug
Second.
and Tim. Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, we are at reports, Dr. Froak.
Just wanted to tell you about our Title I program. Of course, Julie Potter passed away, and Julie worked in the Title I program. And Dawn and I have spent a lot of time, Dawn Worth and I have spent a lot of time talking about this matter, and we believe that it serves the best interests of the district and the students at this time to assign long-term subs to this position. We have currently one working now who Dawn reports is doing an excellent job. There's a couple advantages to doing it this way. When you have a substitute teacher, they have the flexibility to do lesson planning for the Title I program. If we were to hire aides now, they do not have the flexibility to do any planning, and they have to work under the close supervision of a Title I teacher. Okay, so why would we do that? Well, the financial situation with Title I is such that projecting forward to this spring, we believe we would have to do a reduction in force to maintain our financial viability with that program based on increasing costs and reducing revenue. So this way, if we apply long-term substitute teachers, then we aren't hurting anybody next spring by going through a reduction in force process. So anyway, that's the route we are electing to take, unless the board has opposition to doing that.
Dr. Froak, isn't Title I federally funded?
Yes.
So if it's federally funded, how are we going to be running in the?
Well, we've seen some reduction in funding, and also increase in costs. So that's the projection that we're going towards, is for a deficit. So actually, we are in a deficit right now. But, yeah.
How does a long-term subcontractor, we pay at a daily rate, or do we negotiate a flat salary for X number of months?
Well, right now, we're paying $100 per day.
Okay.
So that's what we were anticipating to pay, unless you wanted to see that increased, of course, but for a longer term.
And we don't have any obligation for benefits for a long-term sub?
As long as we stay under 30 hours average. So we have to keep them under that 30-hour mark every week.
So that's why you're splitting it between two individuals.
Is that best for the students? I mean, given the needs of that population, I mean, I understand the rationale for the long-term sub option, but is it better for that group of population, maybe this is a question for Dawn, to have the same teacher day in, day out?
Of course. But if you do a long-term sub, you're saying it would be the same person? No.
No, because they have to stay under 30 hours.
We actually have two really good people that have background in the district, so I feel like the students will be getting a good program with the two of them sharing that. Is it?
I trust your judgment on that. I just want to make sure that we're putting the students' needs ahead of some initial immediate budget needs.
Right. I feel confident that it is going to be a program that will be strong. It already, the person that has been subbing and the one that will do the other part, they'll work closely together to have a good flow for the students daily, even though it's two different people. I think it's going to be a good working relationship where they can support students' needs strongly.
From a parent perspective, I would be concerned about the communication between the two individuals. If I have two individuals working with my child, what communication strategies are you going to have in place to ensure that they're on the same page when it's dealing with the student?
And I understand that completely. I mean, I've thought about it a lot and how that works, but the two people, I don't think, a lot of people maybe wouldn't work so closely. It would be hard when you don't see each other. But the program we use there, the LLI intervention program, it is pretty clear to what the students' needs are. And the two people, I think, will do an awesome job in communicating. I mean, there's no perfect way to do that, but I'll do the best I can. And Sue Galvin is... she's good at communicating with the folks there, and it's right by the office, the room is, so yeah, we'll keep a close eye on that. And the one thing, using DIBELS, the assessment we use, we can track the students' progress, so we can closely look at that and watch it.
I think it's a good proposal, but I will excuse myself from the vote or the motion since Patty's in the title program. And so part of the rationale is potential future reduction in force. I'll excuse myself.
Can't just hire somebody for a one-year contract, so then you don't have to RIF them at the end of the year? Can you do that
Yes.
with title staff?
So you're saying to do that instead of using the two long-term subs?
I mean, is anybody interested in a full-time for a one-year guarantee? Because we know there'll have to be a reduction coming up for next year.
Right.
But is one person going to give you enough hours either? If you're taking two people? Or do you just have one sub right now?
We have one right now, and Dawn is
Hoping to
working on a second.
Or if you were to hire somebody, it would be one FTE?
That's correct.
I just wanted to ask Don one more question. Do you feel that we can get a full-time individual in there at this point of the semester? I mean, I know we're just starting.
A certified teacher? I would guess there would be some applicants. I don't know. You know, there's probably some people out there that aren't working that would, it would have to be a certified teacher if we hire, because in title they have to be highly qualified. Not that they don't in other areas, but where the long-term sub does, I mean, not that we don't want a certified teacher, that's not, but some of the people have past experience as certified teachers, and one of the people does have a lot of reading background that is working there now. So I don't know. I don't know if we would get the quality that we have with her.
Is and provide a cost-benefit analysis to see what's better, doing substitute teacher or hiring a full-time teacher for a one-year contract?
Well, we've looked at the costs, you know. And we can handle this. We're going with a teacher. We would, you know, we would be over. So yeah. So. Okay, thank you. Also, last meeting there was a request to determine where we're at, or where the insurance company was at with the subrogation process, and the mediation among the insurance companies has been settled, and they've determined that our insurance company will handle the entire cost of our loss.
Excuse me, Dr. Ford, can I back up a second? Jim, did we need a motion?
I think it would be a good idea to have a motion in place to accept the recommendation of administration to employ or to deal with the issue, I guess, with long-term substitutes.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve long-term substitute for the Title I program personnel.
Thank you, Rachel. Can I make a second? Can I second it?
Yes.
Okay. I will second it. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And we note that Tim, one abstention. Thank you. Okay, sorry, Dr. Folk.
Okay, thank you. Next item, I just wanted to report on the tentative enrollment as it currently stands with the district. I don't ever consider this the final enrollment until the last Friday of September, because that's our formal count date, and the sheet is at your table. And you'll see above we have, do you have one, Shannon?
Yes, I do, thank you.
Okay. You'll see that we have 43 preschool students, and our target was 48. Yeah, and I think at one time you did talk about 41 as well, but I was hoping for 48, and they worked hard to get to this number. Also we have 13 early childhood children, and that's in the special ed program. We lost students over the summer that we were anticipating having last spring based on our actual count in the district. And we lost students at the Austin School and Jolly. Middle and high school stayed right there, very close to where we projected. But I'm told that due to some turnover in coaches at the USD level, and also graduates, USD graduates moving on, we dropped from our projection last spring from 181 to 169 students at Austin. And then at Jolly, people moved on for employment reasons. And we anticipated 362 students last spring, again, based on the actual count of students that we had. And we have 347. Like I mentioned, middle and high school are very similar to what we're projecting. You'll see we were projecting 1,224 students total last year, and we have 1,194 students currently.
Where did we end up last year? 12,000 and, or 1,208 or something?
We had 1,204, or I should say 1,204 students last year at this time. Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, that's the enrollment update.
A question on preschool, and I don't know if you know this or not, how much the busing impacted that as a positive, or how many people we had actually take advantage of that?
They did take advantage of it, Tim. We more so than we anticipated, actually. I think we have 17 students that are riding, and we had to ask for the help of the bus service and the little bus, the little special ed bus that travels around, because of course you have students transported at one end of town and the other, and so that created some coordination problems. So one unit couldn't take care of the whole works and get them to school when they needed to be here, and so they have it working very well now, and I appreciate the bus company for helping us with that. But yeah, it seems to be working fine. But the last count I had was 17.
Good.
Mrs. Dawn is doing a great job, so.
Oh, okay. No. Where does Margaret ride then? Did she ride in our
Yep,
van?
yep, with Miss Dawn, so. Does a good job. Anybody who can tolerate those little ones that long.
Okay, there was a question last meeting about administrative timelines. And, we used to have a lot of flexibility, administrative evaluation timelines. We used to have a lot of flexibility there as far as when we evaluate administrators, only they implemented the student learning objectives process now, which delays the evaluation process for teachers, the complete summative evaluation process, because that does not finish until towards the end of the school year. We can have a formative process that takes place during the course of the year, but the summative is wrapped up in the spring in most instances. Okay, so further, administrative evaluations are tied to the success of the teacher student learning objective success. So when I do an administrative evaluation, I look at the success that the the teachers have had with their objectives in making how can you say, a rating in that category, but we have to wait for all the teachers that are evaluated that year to complete their evaluation, or for the principal to complete their evaluation of those teachers. So it delays the process right up until the end of the year, where we used to be able to evaluate administrators at any point in the year. And sometime when we have, say, various committees, I'd like to show you what we use for teacher and administrative evaluation, so I can show you how that student learning objective comes into play. So probably not the information you were looking for, but that's what we're working with.
In reading this particular policy, I'm not sure where my fellow board members will stand on this, but I was noticing that in the different areas of evaluation, one area that I felt was missing from this would be the culture or the environment of the school.
Yeah.
I think it's a rather key component, as if we were evaluating an administrator, as to what the feel of the building is and how it fosters both the teachers in the building as well as the students. But that would just be my personal opinion.
Sure. This is another letter underneath each of those sections, is what you're suggesting. Yeah. Not a bad idea.
Sure. We have an accreditation review coming up, and this is an area that the accreditation team looks at in terms of how we're incorporating the student learning objectives for teacher evaluations and principal evaluations. Okay. Just want to note that the governor has pronounced September as Attendance Awareness Month. And we recently had a meeting with the judge, Judge Stevens, and the state's attorney, and other court-appointed folks dealing with the topic of truancy, and they're talking now about implementing a teen court situation that's been successful in other settings, so attendance is very important, as you know, as it plays a major factor in student success. Okay, Associated School Board's regional meeting will be held in Yankton on October 6th. And they talk about any potential legislation that may come up this legislative season. And that will be held at 5:30, and there's a meal served. So kind of keep that in mind and let me know if you're interested in going over.
Dr. Froke,
Yep.
a question on the previous item, the attendance awareness.
Yeah.
So we're going to learn more about that, or if they'll move forward with that?
Yes, the teen court part of that? Yes, that's the idea. There was going to be more research done on it, primarily from the judicial sector, as I understood it. And ladies, maybe you can help me there. Is that your understanding as well, Amy? Yeah. Okay.
As a school system, the administrators are going to get together and kind of define truancy a little
Is-
That meeting is next week.
Oh, good. As part of that whole discussion and concept, I'd really like us to consider either as part of that policy or an additional policy. I'd like to see us consider a retention policy that maybe works together with that, or maybe it's a result of that.
In terms of graduation rate you're talking,
Or I guess we would have to learn a lot more about it, but maybe based upon attendance. If you're not in school, how can we forward you on to the next grade level at any of our buildings?
yes, yeah. Good point.
But it seems like that would be an appropriate place as you guys are working through that could go hand in hand perhaps. Okay, thank you.
They're seeing quite good success in some of these other areas, using teen court. It's used in Brookings, Flandreau, and Yankton. And, they're finding actually, well, it's run by an attorney who, the way it sounds, sits as a judge, but everything else is managed and decided by peers of the teens, and they're finding that the penalties doled out are oftentimes much more stringent than what the adults will dole out themselves.
I guess that's where part of my knowledge base comes from, is from the Yankton district.
Okay.
And yeah, it's a good community awareness and just another way to work with the other agencies
Sure.
within the community and the district.
Well, I don't know a lot about it, I have to admit, because that was our first meeting, and I'd never been through an explanation of it in the past, so I'm a little tenuous in my discussions of it now, but we're moving forward and seeing where it takes us, I guess. So, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, thanks for your questions. I didn't mean to blow through that, Tim.
Item 7.
Okay, alternative certification. I just wanted to inform the board that we do have a teacher who is certified through the alternative means, similar to what we had last year with 2 of our teachers. And this teacher is the Spanish teacher at the middle school, teaching 1 period of Spanish. She has a degree in Spanish, and she's working on a master's degree in her teacher certification. So that's all I have, unless you have any follow-up questions or comments to any of the information that I had here. Okay.
Guess it wasn't information in your report, Dr. Froke, but I know, or maybe it's a question for Sheila. We were waiting for grant money from USD to reimburse a stipend for some of the teachers. I just wondered if that had came.
Yes.
Good.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Right after Labor Day, I think.
Good.
The middle of the week. So.
Thank you.
Next, Sheila.
Yes, included on your packet, in your packet on page 50, is just a history of the summer food service program. As you'll know, this last summer was lower than the previous 3 years. Part of that we think is the heat, but other than that, we don't really know why it went down. But some of those days, we really did our best to keep it cool and the air circulating.
Well, remind me when
Joined us those days.
when did it start? Because week 2 was so high, but I can't remember what week that was.
It was the same time frame as last year, June 1st to July 31st, whatever that Monday and Friday is.
So
right?
like the second week in June was really, really popular.
And normally July does go down some because people are going on vacation. We've always kind of noticed that, but, yeah.
Yeah.
Can't wait on that.
No, it's still a great program, even though attendance was down, so thank you.
7,400 meals served.
Yep. Fills a big need.
That's fabulous. Thank you very much. As far as school board reports, I have a couple of things. Doug had mentioned to us several months ago about potentially dedicating the theater at the high school in honor of Tom Craig. And I know we have discussed it in passing, but I think that if we want to do something, now might be the time to be doing that. And I am throwing out there the thought of potentially dedicating the theater and calling it the Thomas H. Craig Center for Performing Arts, and doing a dedication October 17th, which would be when the apple polishing concert is taking place at the high school. So gives us a little bit over a month, not a lot of time, but I think it might be a fabulous time, and it helps complete an idea that was presented by the board. So that was
Say it again. The Thomas Craig
Thomas
Performing.
H. Craig Center for Performing Arts.
Has anyone asked Nancy?
No, I didn't ask because I figured we had to get past us first. And then I'm sure she's watching at home. But that we would call her and inform her personally of whatever decision might have been made.
I think it's a fabulous idea.
It is a good idea.
And I wanted something partnered with an event that's already being utilized in that space.
Right. And I think it would be a fabulous time to do it. So,
I'll comment that the rationale was obviously that Tom was a tremendous supporter, but that he was also board president and spearheaded the construction of that facility during his time on the board, so that it seems particularly fitting.
absolutely. And the Hall of Fame was his baby as well. So I agree and very excited. Do we need a motion for that? To move that forward?
Looking up something
Dr.
else.
Brooks? Do we need a motion on
Oh,
that?
you can, yes.
Let's do a motion just to formalize it here.
I'll make a motion to dedicate the theater as the Thomas H. Craig Center for Performing Arts.
Thank you, Doug. I'll second it. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Yes, the dedication date will be October 17th, which is the apple polishing concert at the high school. It's basically a fall concert.
It's not the one in the gym, because that would be a little.
No, this is the one in the, no. No, that's the extravaganza at the end of the year. Next up, along the same lines, quite frankly, as Dr. Froke had mentioned, at the end of the summer, we lost Julie Potter, who was a beloved teacher in our district for, I believe, 35 years. And we have not lost an active teacher since 1992, I believe, is the last time we lost somebody who was on our staff. And Julie touched many lives, and she had a favorite poem. And I was wondering, hoping that maybe we could have a plaque, or that Jolly could put this phrase up, whether it's in script or whatever. But she had a favorite poem, and it was called "A Thousand Things Went Right Today" by Dan Sharner. Sharnir. And what a wonderful thing to be able to walk into the school and to be able to see, whether it was there on the wall or wherever. I believe the teachers over at Jolly have been thinking about purchasing a bench in honor of Julie. And even if there's a plaque that says this, that goes with the bench, but something along those lines, I think would be fitting in this particular situation.
If they'd like to do it at the entryway or in the library as an alternative, I think either one would be fine. Let them figure that out.
Yeah, leave it up to the building and where they would like to place the information. Library almost sounds a little fitting considering the program that she was involved in through Title I. But any other thoughts on that? Okay. Can we get a formal motion on that then? Somebody willing?
I make a motion to go forth and in memory of Julie Potter.
1,000 things went right today. Okay. Yes. Thank you, Rachel.
Second.
And Tim. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Doug, since Jim's not here, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Yeah. Last week, Jim and I and several representatives, the VEA, Beth Hansen, Julie Lewis, and Gary Culver, Mel Mahold, Bill Settles, I hope I didn't forget anyone, were able to meet with 3 representatives, and Dr. Froke and Sheila were there, that, I don't even, Sheila, how do we describe what their role is? They're not our insurance provider, but they represent the group.
Right, we are part of a pool of right around 50 schools, and the pool has hired them as a third party to review our plans and take us out to bid, to take the pool out to bid. So they don't work for any Sanford, Avera, or Blue Cross. They're a third-party independent.
So they presented to that group, and I may not have the exact terms, but essentially the numbers that any insurance provider would look at to determine on whether they would issue us insurance don't make us particularly competitive on the open market. That what we have in terms of our typical payouts versus our typical income typically would warrant about $1,000 per month rate per member or per pay enrollee, and ours is currently about $750, $760. So they thought that if we went out for bid, and in South Dakota only 3 insurance providers are approved to do this, Sanford, Avera, and Wellmark, that we may not even get bids from all of them, and that we probably likely end up paying more than we currently do. They also, reminded us that we were able to keep our increase in costs in check this year, and that we should probably expect an increase in rates and costs next year. I mean, I think this year we actually warranted about 12% increase, and we were able to, using a number of some sort of, I don't even know how to describe the MERP in any layman's terms, to minimize what that actual cost is. So it was a bit glum in terms of our likelihood of getting a reduction, but I think it was very informative for everyone to understand that. They also talked to us about self-insurance, and that, as they presented it, and I think as everyone in the room agreed, probably not a viable option, that the risk and the amount of money we would be obligated to be paying out simply is too great for us to take that on. I think it was about a $500,000 a year loss is what we would expect if we were to be doing that. Some things that were positive is that our group of about 50 schools would benefit from increase in that pool. The more schools and the more members, the greater that risk is distributed across all of the members. And as a larger school in our pool, but as one that is also one of the larger consumers with some pretty big claims, we would benefit from increasing that pool. And they are actively recruiting. I mean, we met some of the folks who are going out looking to build that base, and I think that's a very positive thing. So anything we can do to encourage more school districts to join that group is generally good for everyone, we believe. So I think coming out of it, not the best of news, not looking at any, great savior to cut our healthcare costs for our employees, but certainly I think a more informed opinion. And Sheila, maybe we could get copies of those handouts for the rest of the board, just the ones that went out to me. And the VEA has them, and they're able to distribute that, so none of this is secret information. It's complicated, it's hard to understand, but I think it's very helpful to just know the position we're in. So, questions?
Even though there are only 3 carriers currently in the state, I know that it was communicated to us that maybe at some point in time, if we decided to even step over the line of this, that we could potentially be dropped. Do we have the option to at least investigate what the costs are? I mean, that was part of the negotiation process as well. First part was learning about this. The second part was, let's reach out and let's see what the actual numbers are. Would be phase 2, I guess. Do we still have that ability to at least investigate what potential premiums would be if we went with a different carrier?
And to go by yourself, you have to pull out a pool.
In order to just investigate that?
No,
No.
but just, our risk is going to be substantially higher if we pull out of the pool. But yeah, so we can pull out of the pool and then go look for any independent people to give us quotes.
The report back is that the pool wouldn't necessarily take punitive action if we were to look, but that it would not create a positive feeling in association. And honestly, right now, we are costing them money. We do give them some advantage, that because of the size, we provide stability to their pool, because there's a number of ways, and I am so far out of my depth in explaining this. But so it's not like we're a giant loser for them, but we provide them stability, and the return is they cover some of our expenses by distributing our costs across the rest of their members. It doesn't prevent us from doing it. It might create a little bit of ill will, but I don't know what the long-term impact of that might be.
Well, it was one of those things that we had discussed with the teachers.
Right. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So-
And in fact, it was Melanie Mahold who first questioned, is there a downside to us looking? And I think they got answers to that as well as we did, because I was very much, and I'm not opposed to looking at this point. There were, other issues that were kicked around that, we can certainly explore changes in deductibles as we go through that process. We can look at health incentive programs. The one we just put in place, but we can also try to, there's so many variables that you can begin to negotiate to try to control costs. But in the end, we should expect an increase. That's the bad side, whether we go out for bid or whether we stay where we are. It's probably going to cost more next year than it cost this year.
One of the things to keep in mind if we were to go out just on our own is we have not had a good history. We're running anywhere probably from about 135 to 160 claims to premium %. And we have for the last probably 4 to 5 years. So, but we can look out to go out on our own, both fully funded and self-funded. Some things with self-funded were that, and I know they're doing it in some cases, is they will accept you as a plan, but they will laser certain ones out. Where we'll take the plan, but we're not going to cover this person because the expenses are too high. So that's a concern with us going out on our own. And then the reinsurance is a concern. If we looked on our own with self-funded, could we get reinsurance with our history? or would it be cost prohibitive? So,
The other comment I'll make, because, and this came up in discussion, it's tempting to want to look at the open marketplace, go to the website, punch in your personal information and see what the quotes are. And that simply can be very misleading, because that's for specific individuals, and we have to purchase for a group. And I know, Sheila, you said you had done some analysis, or they had done some analysis, that about 50% of or a little more than 50% of our teachers who are in this pool would end up paying more on the open marketplace than what we pay to cover them. So that it isn't really an option. For every person who could save $100, we have another person who it actually ends up costing them an extra $100 a month. So I don't know how to say it, it's bleak.
What was the VEA's response to this? Do they want us to move forward to look at those numbers?
We didn't have that level of discussion afterwards, but we've asked to get started on those types of discussions earlier. So I expect that's coming in the next couple months.
So they'll be a part of that.
They'll be a part of that, yep.
Which is worthwhile,
Yeah.
it appears.
Absolutely.
Good.
I think the pool hopes to go out for bid as a pool. Their goal is December. And I think if we were going out on our own, that's probably roughly when we'd want to, which means we write specs and develop all the same stuff they're developing, but for our own, which will take some time.
Yeah, I think we figured we would need to make that decision by about October 15th. If we want to go out for bid or out, we need to know that early so we can get the process of getting the RFP written.
So I just want to understand correctly. So we cannot just go out and quote-unquote healthcare shop. We have to literally remove ourselves from the pool in order to do that?
No.
Okay.
We're just frowned upon by doing it. And the pool goes out to bid themselves here in December. Just, right?
I guess the part of maybe I'm wrong, but with only 3 providers, if Sanford gets a bid from our pool, or gets a request for a bid from our pool, and a request for a bid from us, if I'm Sanford, that makes me wonder, what's the real bid for this pool going to be? Because if we pull our, 119 people out of it, that's where I think there's the harm to the pool, is that it causes the insurance companies to look at the pool and say, they're maybe not as stable as what they're reporting to us. And the pool's been good to us so far. I know we don't like our costs, but I don't want to, damage them anymore. The great thing, if we could get all the districts together, it saves everybody money. So, lobby your friends and neighbors. Well, not your neighbors, they're here, but.
As long as everybody's on the same page moving together. So, great. Thank you very much. All right, other reports. Mr. Cameron, Food Distribution Program.
I can't take credit for this program. It's such a great credit. All I did was basically say, hey, let's go with this program. It's great for the kids. The major players in the food distribution program at the high school are John Lushbaugh, Kelly Stone, and Don Worth. And I'm just going to give an overview, and if you guys could come up and just talk about your role and the things that you do, which are just awesome for these kids. But prior to the food distribution center being established in the high school, we had what we called the backpack program, where we made sure that the less fortunate kids, the kids that would go home and have no food over the weekend, we would be sure that we sent them home with a sack of food and so forth. And this was done in Miss Stone's room, and also her life skills kids helped organize that. Last spring, Miss Stone came up to me and she said, I got this great idea. Why don't we put a food distribution center into our school so that The life skill kids could do inventory, they could help distribute, just a great opportunity for them to learn. And then also, we would provide the less fortunate with more choices of different foods to have throughout the weekend. And I said, awesome, let's do what we need to do to get this going. And so I just think, Kelly, would you just come up and start off on just your role? And
Well, actually, John approached me and said, what do you think? And I said, let's do it. I think when you look at Feeding South Dakota, they have a new out. 1 in 5 students under the age of 18 are food insecure here in South Dakota. And I think we do see that. And we've been a part of the summer program on Fridays, and we wanted to model after that. So students have choices. I think when you look at high school students, it's hard for them to sometimes come in and they get a sack of food that an elementary student gets. And I don't think it's probably nutritionally the same for a high school student. They could get more. And I think when they have choice, it's empowering. It's like shopping. And it's been a wonderful thing so far. So, and we also have school supplies, and I want to put toiletries and health kits in there too. So I don't know if you have any questions or.
Do you take donations?
Oh, yes. That's what it's run off through the Vermillion Backpack Program and the Welcome Table. And
an organization wanted to make personal hygiene kits or things like that, that they could do that and present them to you. And
I think we like to look at first I thought about making kits, and then I keep thinking, well, we do the food as a choice. Why not the toiletries as a choice? So I don't know whether I would make them as a kit, but have separate things that they can choose and shop for, yes. So right now we're doing it out of the room 41. It's a little tight in there. We're looking at shelves, thanks to Dawn, is getting some shelves through her insurance donation, and we'll keep growing. So far we've had four days, and we average about 15 to 16, and that is pretty equivalent what we did with the backpack. So I'm hoping to see some growth. I know there is a big need. So
was it just after school, like for a certain amount of time, or
we changed the time. We were doing 3:30 to 4:30, and now we're doing 3 to 4 because we're finding they come right after school. It's a big burst. Last Friday was boom, they were in there and they're out. So, and we actually have 2 parents come, and they use the side door. It's in the teacher parking lot towards the back, and it's a little more private. And they pack for the family. They have children at other schools. So instead of getting bags, they can come and pack for the family. We have a freezer, and we're able to get more choices like frozen meats, and we have fresh fruit and vegetables. So
you are seeing wider distribution compared to last year, for example?
I think we will, especially at this time. Right now, the backpack program, I think we have around roughly 170 throughout our district, from Head Start all the way up to the high school. And that usually averages anywhere between 200 and 230 by the time we get into the school year. So, but it's been so beneficial for my students because we're learning a valuable life skill job that actually when you inventory foods, you shelf food, that is a viable job in this community. And so it's been a valuable on both sides.
So the students go out and get the supplies, or do they get brought in?
Brought in from, most of it is coming from Feeding South Dakota, which John is the, and then he gets fresh produce from Hy-Vee, mostly. And then we get free items, bakery items from Walmart and Hy-Vee, so, that are reaching their expiration date. So, and that's a big seller. The cakes, and they're thrilled.
Yeah, I know that's a lot of work. I'm glad that it's a good fit for the students to help. That's a lot of work, and thank you for doing that.
Yeah, it is. Did you have any other questions? Welcome to stop by anytime to see it. We're trying to make the room a little more presentable because the other part, we have to split it in half. The other part is my classroom. And so it's a work in progress, but we're getting there. So.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And just let me add, one thing that I didn't know with the freezer and refrigerator, a lot of times we send home like macaroni and cheese, but no milk or hamburger helper without any hamburger. So the things that we really like for donations for the people out there would be hamburger or milk to supplement the boxed goods that they have there. But and we call it tanager takeout. So it's not it's, I guess, a little more friendly type of environment there. So it's been real successful. Thanks.
That's a cute name.
Thank you. Well, since you're standing there, you want to
I
talk
might as well
about
go to the
ACT
next one. It's that time of year. Our kids did increase their overall composite score from the last year, which I'm happy. We always wish we could go a little higher, but we're always higher than the state average. I believe you should have in your packet, I'm just going to go through a few things here. We had 61 kids take the test. That was 90% of the student body. And statewide, it's 63%. So the majority of our kids will take the ACT opposed to the other schools. I'm just going to go through how we scored. Obviously, it's in your packet here, just so that our viewers could see. English, our students scored 21.7. State average was 20.9. Mathematics, 22.1. State average was 21.7. Reading was 23.4. State average 22.4. Science, 23.4, where the state was 22.2. And our overall composite, 22.7, opposed to the state's 21.9. So again, we had some kids score very high scores, quite a few kids over the 30, which is very impressive. But again, when you look at the amount of kids that take our test, the different programs that our teachers do to try to reinforce ACT questions throughout the school year. Also, South Dakota My Life has a testing portion, practice test for ACTs, in which Lynn Griffith and Patty Larson walked the kids through how to get there, how to manage that practice test. So we're always looking for new ways, too, to try to help our kids, especially with the ACTs and the importance with scholarships that are tied into that. So any questions with our ACT, the scores, and where we're at? So once again, I'm proud of our kids. We're going to keep on working. Like I tell the board every year, I'm not going to retire until we get to that 24. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Jim, you're going to talk to us about the ACH agreement?
Yes, briefly. In the last few weeks, First Dakota submitted a new ACH agreement to Sheila's office. And it changed some things from what had been previously bid, and we're still within the bid time frame. That doesn't expire until next July. And so Sheila went to a lot of effort to get clarification from First Dakota on the meaning of some of these changes. As long as we do not opt into same-day ACH procedures, there will not be any additional charges for those. The unauthorized entry fees that they're attempting to impose will not affect us either, and the negligence versus gross negligence legal standard that's contained in the bid specifications will not change. Sheila emailed First Dakota and to get clarification of that, and the wording back was, "Hi Sheila, correct, based on the current bid, these two statements override what's in the agreement. All other stipulations in the new agreement will supersede the current one, but those two items in the bid will prevail until that proposal expires and we go through the bid process again." So with that, we feel comfortable that First Dakota is not going to charge additional over what had been previously bid. And so if the board does not approve this new agreement, then if we continue to do ACH transactions, we're automatically going to be in it after the 27th of this month. And so what I'd recommend is that the board approve the agreement with the understanding that our bid terms and conditions are going to remain in effect until July. We're not the only ones that got sent this agreement, but we're probably the only ones that had bid requirements that keep us protected from the changes.
I'd like to make a motion then to approve the new agreement with the understanding that the bid terms remain in effect until July.
Second.
Tim, thank you.
So a question related to that is our ACH transactions, is that related to payroll, direct deposit, or other things?
It is related to payroll primarily, but also all of our officials go direct deposit.
So we have a first and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Sheila, we're up to you with financials, both funds and claims.
Beginning on page 52, you'll find the business manager's report. And the only thing I really wanted to note, unless you have questions, is under the local sources general fund, just to note there's about $100,000 of that local was a receivable at the end of this last year, June 30th of 2016. And all of the federal dollars were a receivable except the food service. That is a payment for July, but the federal dollars were all receivables on the books of June 30th, 2016 as receivables. Again, it's just when the cash comes in versus when the books are noted. So if you have any questions, I'll sure answer those. Following that is just, again, the cash balance comparison, and it is just informational to see where our cash is at this current time versus several years in the past. And the same thing with the tax receipts. I will be watching the tax receipts. As you can see, Clay County is a little over 100,000 lower. And if you look back several years, it is still. So I will be watching that in the coming months just to see how that trends. The claims do begin on page 56, and if you have any questions. August and September are big months for us because the summer we bought all our supplies, or a large portion of our supplies come in during the summer.
Thank you, Rachel.
And claims?
Second.
And Doug. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Does anybody have any future agenda items?
Dr. Frobe, do they have like a monthly attendance report that you are provided, so we know how our attendance is?
Sure.
Is that a thing?
Yes. Yes, we,
Well, I was just thinking as attendance awareness month, maybe that just be a standard report that gets provided as just what the previous month's attendance percentage was.
like that ongoing.
I think so. And maybe, because once the group just sets a goal, and I'm sure we already have one, maybe where we're at towards that every month.
Something that we review with the leadership team on a bi-weekly basis.
I have something I wanted to add. It has been brought up a number of times about our district goals and how we are relating back to what's on our agenda and things like that. And so, for instance, we have 5 district goals. And as we went through our agenda this evening, I'm not sure really how many of the items that we covered really fall under our goals. So it is something that I think that we should be watching. And while I did not attend my board president meeting that I drove all the way to Aberdeen for, I did have an opportunity to read the president handbook. And in the handbook, while my chauffeur was driving me, it had mentioned that really in an agenda, under each item, whether it be new business, old business, et cetera, everything should be lined up with what our district goals are, so that we are maintaining that and keeping that. If what our agenda is saying is not jiving with our district goals, then we need to update our district goals. So I have a few of these. And we'll pass them out, and then that way everybody's got their copy, and then we can kind of watch this as we're going forward. So I'd like to have that on there and kind of be discussing that as we're going through the agenda next time, saying, okay, now this ties into this. If we're not saying that it's tying into anything, then we maybe need to refocus our efforts.
Basically, like we have 5 pillars, and we should hit a pillar each time. And
in theory,
each agenda item, you should have the pillar.
I think that there will always be something that doesn't fit within our pillars, but I'd say the majority of our agenda should be fitting within our pillars. Like I said, either that or we need to change our goals. So, but I guess we will.
Goals should always be ongoing as well.
Exactly. And so we'll be able to determine if we need to tweak anything as we go forward. I would love to have the policy committee review that policy we were talking about earlier, the item AFH, to include something about school culture. At least take a look at it. I think it's a really vital piece of a holistic education, and it is something as a board that we have talked about a lot. And so why wouldn't it be in an evaluation piece? So, and then, of course, the monthly attendance, which does happen to actually play out this item 4, attendance of our students. So good job, Rachel. So, and the only other thing I had was, but this is probably more for Dr. Froke than it is for the meeting. I'm hearing that we're lacking in noon aides or volunteers at the middle school. And so that we had a bunch of students and then they quit or something. And so our students aren't getting outside at lunch, and it's creating havoc. And so I'm not sure. They are only 12, 11, 12, and 13. So a little exercise probably isn't such a bad thing. But anyway, maybe we need to, you can look into that. That's your job. So, okay. But that's all I have. All right. Does anybody else have anything? All right, let's see. Well, we appreciate everybody taking time to support the Vermillion School District. As a reminder, our next meeting will be on Tuesday, October 11th, because the 10th is a holiday. And then also to remind you that this Friday is Vermillion Homecoming. Come and support your tanagers at 7 o'clock in the Dome. We will be fighting to the death Dakota Valley Panthers. So we are in need of executive session this evening for personnel issues. So we need a motion to go into executive session.
Motion for executive session.
Thank you, Rachel.
Second.
And Tim. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We are now in executive session.